NBA DFS show with John Impemba and James Grande.
What is going on, FANation? John Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Playbook Live show. It is Friday. Got ourselves a nice 6-game main slate here on the DraftKings platform. We appreciate all of you guys already tuning in and waiting here. Got a first comment already in from Josie. RKS saying, yo, David saying, let's get it. Happy to have you all with us here. Again, we are going position by position. We're going to break down each and every player on today's slate. We'll build a lineup. We'll get you ready.
Every player?
Every player.
Every single one.
We're going to mention,
Buckle up.
Every single player.
Buckle up, everybody.
We'll tell you which ones we like, which ones we don't, where our value lies, our top plays. Go through it all, James. How are you feeling about it? You're the playbook. Good. The playbook got nice and early for everybody today, so you were just like ready to go. You got your finger on the pulse of what we're doing here today.
Yeah, I think it's a nice slate. I said in Discord, absolutely nothing can go wrong with today's slate. There's nothing that's going to go wrong. No news. It's been a very slow news cycle today. Incredibly slow.
We had some big names, though.
There has been not a lot of things that have happened today.
Like Lillard became a probable player today.
Lillard became probable. Zion became questionable.
Those are two big names. We liked the Lillard spot.
Unquestionably. But that's it. And I think maybe the funniest thing of the day, Isaiah Stewart's suspension today.
Yeah.
Do you know what's happening in Detroit today?
Isaiah
Stewart bobblehead day.
Is it? Okay.
He will not be participating tonight because he is suspended on the night of his own bobblehead giveaway. That's his fault.
Probably for the best. He most certainly would have fought somebody.
He will. That is typical of Isaiah Stewart stepping on the floor. But I think it's a good slate. I think there's nice balance to it. I don't think anybody has any clue on what to play. I'm still not playing Kyle Lowry and Anthony in here nice and early to get in his Kyle Lowry takes. You know what? Good for Anthony. I'm happy. I hope he plays Kyle Lowry and I hope he has success. He did not make the playbook today. Surprise, surprise. The playbook that you can find over on fantasyalarm.com today, John, does not include Kyle Lowry.
Yeah, I'm not overly surprised about that. I'll say this ownership also maybe not too surprising from how we broke it down on the preview show. We kind of assume center again. Yep. There's a lot of good center options tonight, right? So we have another spot, another opportunity where Nikola Jokic is 20%, 25% maybe by the time the slate locks, which could be your leverage play on a smaller slate, 6 games. If he goes for the ceiling 90 fantasy points, right? That said, there's a lot of value on this slate. There are higher rostered Nuggets on this slate here today than Nikola Jokic. People looking to get their exposure in that game, but in other spots, which I think is sort of interesting. So it should be fun. We'll if Lillard gets ruled out, though, is there no way you don't just play Giannis instead? Something to talk about here, right?
Yeah. A little sad on the Jokic ownership. He was much lower earlier today.
Yeah.
Much lower. And people are smart, so obviously that's changed. But that
brings up a good point. It's how do you not cancel the bobblehead night when the guy is suspended?
Agreed. No, fully agreed. And they found out earlier today. So you could probably just push it back a day, right?
The problem is it's probably there's some marketing rep somewhere that had the whole calendar planned out. They're we can't move it, right? Because
100%.
The next Tuesday Serbian national night when Jokic is in there, so we can't we can't change that day.
Did you see? I don't know if you saw. Someone had tweeted.
Ooh,
what do we got?
Exum expected to play tonight.
Interesting.
Not going to do much, but interesting.
Yeah, Jaden Hardy's minutes, goodbye.
Right.
See you later. The Serbian national night, I don't know if you saw there when Jokic warm up was going on, they panned around the arena. It was nothing. And then you got to this entirely full section of just watching Nikola Jokic go through his pregame warm-up, like hundreds of people just sitting in the stands, just nowhere else but that section right there.
Yeah, agreed. Anthony says Kyrie's going off tonight. Chris is back looking for the 50K on FanDuel. James Harden, 8% ownership. And Matt commenting, listen, I didn't even remember Dante Exum was in the league until I got the note that he's practicing the other day. And now he's expected to play. We'll see, again, what that even looks like. But, last year, there were moments where Dante Exum was really good.
He was good.
For them. So anyways, again, we go position by position. I've been kind of lagging a little bit to get everybody in here. If you have any questions or comments, throw them in the chat. If you want to sign up for Fantasy Alarm, we have the 7-day free trial still going on. fantasyalarm.com/win. Use promo code Let's Go. That first month after your 7-day free trial is just less than $20. That gets you access to everything on site, not just our NBA DFS content, but NHL. Our big MMA card tomorrow is Israel Adesanya. On that card, you got him in that playbook. You can get that for free with your 7-day free trial, and all the good content that we got going on for the NFL, best bets, you name it. It's under there for 7 days for free. So check that out. Jokic is 12K is your top overall price play. Giannis 11.5, Wemby 11K, Cade 10.1. Those are your top 4 guys up over $10,000. At the point guard position, that brings us to Cade at 10.1, Maxey at 97, Barnes 94, Harden 93, and a probable Damian Lillard at $9,000.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting top tier. I think Cade is definitely good. He has a tough matchup. He's going to be guarded by PJ Washington more than likely. PJ Washington, a very good lengthy defender, but we've seen Cade in any spot have 60 fantasy point upside. So I'm definitely getting there. I think my favorite spend up at point guard is Tyrese Maxey. I like that game quite a bit if it can stay competitive. I know Denver routed them the last time they played, but that was like very unfortunate circumstance for Philadelphia. I want to say Paul George either played or didn't play or got hurt or they just got routed. But traveling to Denver, it was third night in 4 games they had to play. This one's at home. Maxey's been cooking. So I like Tyrese Maxey quite a bit tonight. One of my favorite tournament plays of the night. You can definitely get to Harden, to Christopher's point, and salute to you, Christopher, for being back. I know you commented yesterday too, but welcome back. I think from vacation, right? Is that what you said yesterday?
In Hawaii,
yeah. Something light, just in Hawaii. Gonna win another trip to Hawaii. I mean, he's always chasing the 50K.
Yeah.
And you and I kind of like highlighted it on the pre-show. It hasn't mattered that Kawhi has been back. On the year with Kawhi on the floor, it's a 140-minute sample for James Harden, 1.3 fantasy points per minute. Sure, the usage has gone down a little bit, but 1.3 fantasy points per minute isn't going anywhere if you're going to get max minutes out of Harden. That's the kicker. Do you get max minutes out of Harden? It's a 14-point spread. So if you do believe Charlotte can keep this game competitive, then Harden's obviously in a really good spot.
Yeah.
But the Dame status is obviously interesting because I don't think a lot of people take much stock into like probable tags because like probable, equals probable to play, right? Like probably going to play. But I think there's always something more when it's a like pop up in the middle of the day, like they are suddenly probable. Like
groin soreness too.
And it's a groin.
Like
yeah, that's 100% correct. Like it is an area that is very sensitive and very disruptive, right? Like the groin in any sport
is, right? Like your lateral movement, drinking, like all those things.
It's a very impactful injury, so it's definitely something, 100% something to monitor. If he plays, he's great in tournaments. He's obviously been elite, but definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I agree. And again, obviously, if he's not there, then you have just other options we can go to. We've talked a lot about Milwaukee and some of the players that they've been missing would open up some definite value that we'd be looking to play. Can the man in the chat have been heavy with us saying Giannis way higher owned than Jokic. Anthony wants to know, do the Clippers have blowout risk? We'll touch on that. They have that matchup against Charlotte. And then on that same thought, Ryan wants to know our thoughts on KPJ. So, guys, we'll hit on those as we work our way down. We also like the Dallas stack. Detroit's overrated, said Anthony. I don't know if Detroit's overrated, but they at least have one elite player in Cade Cunningham in that spot. All right, mid-tier range. After Lillard, we got Kyrie, DeJounte, maybe no Zion now, Jamal Murray, $7,500, Giddey at $7K, $7,200.
Yeah, I think Kyrie is great because the minutes. To the point that Anthony raised about like stacking, it's not like as like prominent in NBA DFS as it is in other sports. Like you can stack, sure, but like, am I stacking 88 Kyrie, 74 PJ Washington, 76 Daniel Gafford? Probably not. So I'd play two probably of those like expensive Dallas guys. I like Kyrie 88. I'm kind of indifferent about the Pelicans in general. I don't know how to necessarily talk about them without knowing the status of Zion. Like DeJounte becomes incredibly appealing if there's no Zion.
Do they play tomorrow?
It's an illness for Zion.
Sure.
So I don't think necessarily the tomorrow would play a factor here. We can look.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if he's got like if he's dealing with something now and they play tomorrow, they'd probably more likely just to sit him today, right? Like,
let's look. I mean, yes and no. No, they don't.
They don't play tomorrow, so it's fine.
I mean, a little indifferent about everything Pelicans unless we know more about Zion. I probably wouldn't get there if Zion plays. Almost no interest in Josh Giddey with the minutes lately.
And Kobe White's actually the one getting ownership here today.
Yeah, I think Kobe White's a really good play. He's one of my favorite plays of the day. I don't disagree with the ownership either. When you remove Zach LaVine from the floor, Kobe White is the guy leading the charge in usage rate, 26.4 or 26.5%. That's 4% higher than anyone else. Like he has significantly more usage than any other player on the floor when Zach LaVine's not on it, while averaging over 1 fantasy point per minute. And obviously, like the price has just absolutely tanked. The thing I'm like kind of trying to like sort through is the minutes on Kobe White. He was only supposed to play 25 to 28 minutes and gave him 31. So like, is that a product of like the ankle's feeling better? Hey, Billy, I'm feeling good. Let me go longer. Is that like Billy forgetting, oops, I wasn't supposed to play him this much? Like, what is the reason he was extended that much when we were provided a specific number, you know? So if we get 31 right off the bat, it's not going to go down in a more competitive setting here against Toronto. So I'm actually right there with the field. I think Kobe White is a great play at the price, point guard, shooting guard eligibility too. So that's someone that I'm also high on. And Westbrook is getting a lot of ownership. I kind of agree with the field. Primarily because
right? I mean, we talked about it. We thought maybe his minutes were going to start going away, and we was like, was this a product of blowouts or the product of them being healthy? And then they moved Christian Brown to the bench. You're like, oh no, he's just in the lineup now.
Yeah, the minutes have solidified, and that's solidified my desire to play him. So I think 6,500 is very safe.
Agreed. Work our way down, a little value range under 6K. Any name or two that stick out to you here?
Nothing like particular. Stephon Castle is obviously a guy that we can get to. You know, the minutes have been pretty solid. They extended Sohan last game, and it's usually been like at the expense of Stephon Castle. They extended Sohan last game at the expense of Harrison Barnes, despite Barnes playing really well. Sohan closed over Barnes. The KPJ conversation is one we can have. If you want to pull up KPJ, John, because we've talked about this a lot. Like I would say like the reason you're playing Kevin Porter Jr. today is because you think that game ends in a blowout because he gets blowout run.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean we've also kind of talked about sort of how they're running like their overall rotation now that they've been been healthier. And how you want to go about like actually. I mean, he scored 0 actual points in 2 of the last 4 games. So you're just hopeful that there is a blowout and that he's at least productive when he's on the floor, because he's gotten 14 and 12 minutes. He's in a blowout. What's his max minutes? 24, like 20, 22. Like they're gonna play those guys 3.5 quarters.
He played 8 first half minutes the other day. Full rotation, right? Like, yeah, obviously there's no Chris Dunn. Fully understanding. Like, Chris Dunn's out. He got 1 minute of blowout because that game was out of hand. Let's say this game is out of hand and he plays the 4th quarter. Like you said, it's like there's a chance that it's 20, but 22 maybe? And that is solely dependent on a blowout, because let's not forget, Kawhi's minutes have been extended. He played 29 and lost a minute to blowout. Does Kawhi get to 30 in that scenario? Like if that's a competitive game, they're taking Kawhi out with a minute left. Like that's 30 minutes for Kawhi Leonard, right? Like like Derek Jones played 32 minutes in the starting lineup. If they're just going to play the 5 starters, I would say the scenario that maybe Kevin Porter plays a little more is if Batum gets ruled out with the midday downgrade.
Sure.
Because now you're shifting around like Coffee and Man, and now like your only real wing in that would be like Kevin Porter, or your only guard, because maybe you're moving Terrence Mann a little bit more positionally. But like
the other thing is no one playing him, right? He's 10%.
Yeah. And
so you're taking a low rostered value play and then hoping that he doesn't floor you, because if he floors you, and we've seen this lately, and no one's on him, then you don't cash.
And needing the game to blow out.
Right.
You absolutely need the game to blow out for him to maximize minutes.
If you are high on Kevin Porter, go hammer all his props today. I did the prize picks under. It's like his prop points at like 6.5. You can like gobble that down to 3.5. I mean, like all its props are free. If you think Kevin Porter Jr. is getting blowout run today, go to Underdog, go to Prize Picks, and go hammer some KPJ props today.
Yeah, I think it's like interesting because like the last time you can like legitimately say he was extended was 125. Like, and that was Kawhi was at 24 minutes and didn't play the 4th quarter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ivica Zubac played 28 minutes, barely kind of played in the first half. It's like he has to run like perfectly. I'm not saying that he can't get there or isn't like when he gets going like a high fantasy point per minute guy. I just don't get the like a bunch of like
if he was like 60%, I would understand it. Like, all right, you got to play the chalk value today, and you live and die by it. But if you're going to be on an island with him at $3,500, then I don't think in single entries I'm playing that. I think if I'm making a couple of lineups, I'll sprinkle some in, but there's definite risk there. Anybody else at point guard? Okay. Shooting guard. Jaylen Brown, $7,800. Trey Murphy, $76. McCollum, $74. I know you mentioned you weren't sure what to do with the Pelicans. Norm's in this range. Oubre, Vassell. What are we thinking here at the top half of shooting guard today?
Yeah, I just think the Pelicans news is just dependent on like, because I would definitely, I know Boston's a tough spot, but like it's undeniably, I mean, the usage for Murphy, McCollum, and Murray would be astronomical if there's no Zion. I mean, you could make a case for all 3 of those guys with how shorthanded they'd be, and Messi, honestly, the 4 M's there. I like Jaylen Brown in tournaments. We don't necessarily know if there's anything going on with the knee for Tatum. He's not on the injury report, but obviously he's played poorly lately, at least to his standards, and Jaylen Brown's played really well under $8,000. We're getting the best version of Brown we've gotten in some time, at least the most consistent version of Brown, coinciding with the Tatum down game. So as Brown's price, hovers under 8K, I'm definitely in on tournaments, TBD on New Orleans. You can always play Norm. Have to love the Derek White minutes the last few games, 36 and 40. They're ramping him up. It's a really good spot if you want to get there. I know they're going to have Hauser. We don't know on Horford, but you could White will be unowned. Kelly Oubre is going to be, a relatively popular play in cash and single entry. He has just been super steady across the board. There's nothing that like really pops when you look at Kelly Oubre, like with all the guys out. Like usage is fine.
He just does everything, right? And
fantasy points per minute were like 0.9. Like
he takes on their number 2 scorer lately,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's been very solid. The minutes are great, and that's what really like allows him to get to where he's getting to nightly. And then Devin Vassell is going to be really popular. We talk about this all the time. Like in this range, the price is like just kind of too cheap. I know the Spurs have kind of like a depth issue sometimes. I think that's hurt Vassell's minutes a little bit. Also, the Spurs have been involved in blowout after blowout after blowout after blowout. I mean, they've been in 6 straight blowouts. So we haven't really been able to get full run out of Devin Vassell. He lost a couple to blowout like in every game he's played lately. But this game is, a 2-point spread, 235 implied points, and that's up like 4 points since open. So yeah, I think Devin Vassell is great. 6,100 shooting guard, small forward. Eligibility is great. Like I like Oubre in that game better. Like I love the game stack aspect of like Kelly Oubre, but I think Vassell makes a lot more sense just with the eligibility, and he's a little cheaper.
Okay. Klay Thompson. Obviously, the last couple of games for him, 13 threes on 23 attempts. Do we think we see the free shooting Klay tonight, or do we go back to the passive shooting Klay that we saw like the 5 games prior?
Yeah, Klay is just a rhythm. He's such a rhythm shooter. He's always been like that. And when he's going good, I mean, he's really going good. We don't see many shooters better in the history of the NBA when he's making shots. Last 2 games, 23.5% usage, 31.8% usage in a really good spot, really good game environment. And I think the most important thing was that he was on a limit and then he wasn't, right? 29 minutes last game after being on a strict 24-minute limit prior. So it's a tournament dart only, but I think it's a really good play because like the field is going to Chris Middleton in this spot. Yeah. Same eligibility, right? And I'm not saying that's a bad play at all, especially if you're like sitting with Middleton and Dame gets ruled out.
If Dame gets ruled out, I think Middleton makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but if he doesn't, there's not, if Klay's making shots, like there's not a lot of difference between Klay and Chris Middleton. I think
Middleton gives you more other stats.
Yes, but I'm saying for sure. But if Klay is making shots, he can fill it. He fills it up way faster than Middleton can.
Yeah, because he only takes threes, right?
Because he's only taking threes, and Middleton's also like seemingly just can't play over 27 minutes no matter what. I mean, we saw the second leg of a back-to-back. I was wondering, like, why is he playing here?
Yeah,
might as well not have 15 minutes. Just was a 0. I don't hate Chris Middleton at all. Last like multiple games that he's gotten extended run, he has smashed. Yeah. But I think
this price point, right? 5,100, you need 25 fantasy points. Outside of the Clippers and Portland games, I mean, you've been getting 6x basically on that number. So
yeah, every game he's extended. Every game he gets extended in.
Yep. So I don't mind it. Between them, you have Malik Beasley, who again, it's a shot maker rhythm thing. When he hits his shots, he gets extended and he goes for 6x. So maybe he's even a bit more secure than the other two. Like consistency wise, of late, he's been more consistent than Middleton and Thompson.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not 6-game sample size. At least he's been
for sure. No, for sure. I would say they all look eerily similar to me. I mean, Klay and Beasley specifically, because they both depend on the 3-point volume.
Let's Justin mentions Bruce Brown here. You have Christian Brown, Bruce Brown, and Eric Gordon and Gary Trent. 4 guys that I think is worth talking about. Christian Brown, we've been high on. They moved him to the bench. Wasn't great against the Knicks, but at least 29 minutes. So he had that going for him. We know when those shots fall for him, the ceiling's nice. Bruce Brown has been killing it for us, but they're maybe even healthier than they've been again in a while if Quickly ends up returning. I know Grady Dick is questionable.
Yep.
I don't know how you feel about Bruce Brown, and then Eric Gordon and Gary Trent are $4,200 and $4,100.
On the Bruce Brown front, I am a little indifferent just based on like Quickly's return. I know they downgraded Shed, but Davion would just operate in the backup point guard role. So that obviously takes away a little ball handling from Bruce Brown. If Grady Dick doesn't play, then I think that you definitely consider Bruce Brown. I think if Grady Dick plays, that's probably the most important thing for Bruce Brown.
Sure.
But you are just simply putting a high usage player back on the floor if Quickly plays, right? Like that is
And didn't Quickly last time he returned just play minutes right away too?
Yes, different injury. This is a hip injury. I assume that this is much harder to like get the cardio back up to where, because like the last injury was a hand or a shoulder or
groin.
Was it a groin? And they played him right off the rip?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, if they're gonna, who knows? But if they follow the same trend, then obviously like it's hard to get to much else.
Yeah.
So I'm a little indifferent on Bruce Brown. Christian Brown, same thing. He checked in for Jokic in that foul trouble last game. The minutes were fine outside of like that. He closed over Michael Porter for the last like minute of the game, but he definitely doesn't see 29 if Jokic is out of foul trouble. Like who knows when he checks in that game? It's probably mid-20s minutes like he's been playing. So if you think 25 to 26 minutes is enough, then you can get there. Eric Gordon, I don't necessarily know what to do. The Philly ancillary pieces are tricky because we know Gordon's going to start. We know Edwards is going to start. They could extend Ricky Council. They could realistically, if Kyle Lowry's playing well, we know Nick Nurse's infatuation with Kyle Lowry. We just saw it last game, right? They extended Kyle Lowry. It's a tricky proposition because you look at the Philly rotation last game, you're like, oh, Eric Gordon was playing really well. Eric Gordon also didn't check back in the game after the 6-minute mark of the third quarter. He didn't play the final 18 minutes of the game. So if there's a chance that Eric Gordon doesn't play the final 18 minutes of the game, I don't know if I'm playing much Eric Gordon. I think that's a little risky if he's not as efficient as he's been. If Eric Gordon's playing 22 minutes, you're dead. So tournaments only for me. I think obviously there's a wide range of outcomes on his minutes, but 22 is obviously a little bit of a concern.
Sure.
Gary Trent, another guy, I think that is dependent on the AJ Green status. I don't think we see as many minutes as we've seen. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. Really low fantasy point per minute guy. I know he's been better lately. Probably in the same bucket as like a lot of the other guys we mentioned, except I think his minutes ceiling probably isn't as high, especially if Green comes back. Because, when Green was playing over getting more run than Gary Trent was. So a little indifferent there. I don't really have. We have the Brandon
Boston question if there's no Zion tonight.
Well, and there was Brandon Boston questions related to. I had mentioned it briefly last night. They already ruled out Hawkins and Daniel Tice tonight. Both those guys are out. Yeah. So like backup run available. And Brandon Boston was like off the bench early the other day in a game that was 200 gajillion points scored. Definitely feels better if Zion's out.
Yeah, just add some rotation because they're down a lot of people possibly tonight. So
yeah, they played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They played 9 guys the other day. 4 guys off the bench played 18 to 21 minutes, Brandon Boston included. The JRE stuff is a no for me, probably, unless he's starting. He was a straight DMP last game. I guess like we'll see what they do if that comes to be in a situation where like what their starting lineup is. I would imagine JRE is that's a tough cover for him if he has to cover like Jason Tatum or something.
Yeah.
I'd assume you would just move Murphy to the 4 and have Murphy guard Tatum, and you insert like Boston or Javonte Green would probably be my guess, would be your fifth starter. Cam, you haven't been here. MD's our local troll. So this is what he does every slate. So we comment on it and then we move on. I think Brandon Boston is definitely fine. My assumption is if Zion's out, he wouldn't start, and it would be Javonte Green. That would be my guess, but
sure.
I do think Brandon Boston with Hawkins and Tice out is in play.
Okay. Small forward. The aforementioned Tatum is 95. We got Scotty Barnes at 94. Then a lot of these guys we've kind of already touched on, but Kawhi at 69, I think, was the one that had our eye on the preview show. How much exposure do you feel like you're going to be getting to spending up at small forward? And where do we figure Kawhi for tonight?
So I don't love this position, and I think that's why we're seeing Devin Vassell and Chris Middleton get a lot of ownership.
Yeah,
because they're multi-position eligible and it's a bad position in general. I think like a lot of the Philly stuff is uncertain too, because at multiple points today, Ricky Council's had a lot of ownership. Now he has none, and now Justin Edwards has all the ownership, and that might change by the time roster lock comes around, right?
Batum officially out.
Batum officially out. Okay. So like I assume Amir Coffey like is the biggest beneficiary there. We'll see. I am more in on Scotty Barnes, if there's no Quickly. He's fine with Quickly. 1.27 fantasy points per minute with Quickly, but it's higher when there's no Quickly. Definitely interested in Kawhi. Obviously, we just talked about it. He was pacing for over 30 minutes in the Spurs game. If that's not a blowout, he was really good, has been really good per minute. Do they just get Kawhi the minutes regardless? Like, does Kawhi just play 30 in a blowout? I don't think so. I don't think they would risk that. But if this game stays competitive, Kawhi obviously has an immaculate ceiling. I mean, 6,900 is, for the version of Kawhi Leonard that we're currently getting, is too cheap. He has a 28% usage, 1.1 fantasy points per minute. And I expect the fantasy points per minute to continue to trend upwards as he continues to,
no one's playing him.
So. And no one's playing him. I understand people's reservations, but seeing that he lost the minute and seeing that like he is now, after playing 24 for like 4 consecutive games, and now seeing that there has been gradual increase the last 3 games, makes you wonder if we are just going to continue. Like, could that 29 look 31, 32 tonight if it's competitive? And 32 minutes it's like we say this all the time. And I got fortunate last weekend with Paolo, right? Where I guessed Paolo's minutes to be, this is the game that Paolo's going to go from 32 to all the minutes.
Yeah.
I got it correct. Fortunately, Paolo played 40. I almost won a tournament. That could be the same with Kawhi. I don't think you're going to get 40, but if you got the game, if you were in before the field, watched Kawhi go to 33 minutes, you just have leverage on the field. So I think it's a very, very interesting large field tournament play, because if you pick the game correctly, where Kawhi is like, doing what he did last game for another 4 to 5 minutes, then like he's going to help you win the tournament.
Yep. I don't disagree. I think it's a pretty interesting spot for him. Obviously, the blow, it's where everybody's afraid. And that's why probably nobody's really in on the Clippers on that side. So.
Correct. For sure.
Again, same thing with Norm in that range. Excuse me. If you're not really going up top, because no one's playing Scotty Barnes either, which I think is surprising, because like we like that matchup. We like that game. No one's spending up there. So where do you go then at the small forward position? Like, where else? A lot of these guys have dual positional eligibility. looks like Exum limited to 15 minutes tonight. So
I'd be surprised if he played 15, but he has been obviously, he played for them a lot last year. So,
yep. So where else are we looking to go then at small forward today?
we're looking to go to power forward. No, I mean,
probably, right? I mean, we want to talk about the Edwards Council thing because we've gone over this kind of for a few slates now.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think my point remains about like the Sixers are hard to predict, like what they're going to do slate to slate. But if you're just simply looking at the numbers, if you're following the numbers, Ricky Council's the better usage guy. Ricky Council's the better fantasy point per minute guy than Justin Edwards. Justin Edwards' leverage is that he starts, right? And we've seen Ricky Council not play in the first quarter 2 games in a row.
Yeah.
Also, Ricky Council played the entire second quarter, the entire fourth quarter last game. So it's really just like...
And he's been the higher fantasy point per minute player and the highest usage rate player.
Exactly. So, I mean, I lean Council, especially if he's going to be lower owned, but it's obvious. It's like there is obvious risk with everyone not named Maxi, Oubre, Yabusele in terms of minutes. I think, seeing Kyle Lowry play 16 straight second half minutes told me all I need to know about Philly's rotation.
Agreed. We had the Bazulas question from Josh. Any interest here?
If THT is officially ruled out, it'd be something that I would probably consider. Okay. The minutes have been obviously good, and I think
5,022 minutes isn't great, but
rookie. That's a rookie.
It is. Agreed. All right, power forward. We've had a lot of Miles Bridges comments. It could have just been Anthony, but I've seen his name a few times in the chat.
It was Anthony. Back-to-back comments.
Okay. You have Giannis 11-5. If you want to go there, 100% can, especially if there's no Dame, even better. But now you have Bridges 85, Zion. We'll see, I guess. PJ Washington, who's someone you and I were really high on this morning at $7,300. Which side do you want to go on here?
Well, I see you haven't read my playbook today. The cover of today's NBA DFS playbook on fantasyalarm.com is PJ Washington.
Yeah.
So
I did also wrote up PJ Washington's points today for underdog. So prize pick rather 17.
I mean, there has been, and it's been for anyone that's watched our show, we have been screaming it from the rooftops. PJ Washington's a stand in the corner 3-and-D guy when Luka plays, and when Luka doesn't, PJ Washington's like, I'll get you a gosh dang bucket from wherever you need me to get a bucket from. Biggest bump on the team in terms of usage when there's no Lively, no Kleba, no Doncic. Over 1 fantasy point per minute, almost 1.1. And in 4 of his last 5 games, he's had a 26% usage or better. So we're just getting the increased usage out of PJ. I am a big fan of PJ, of the guys in this tier. Now, that's not to slight Giannis. I think Giannis is elite. Giannis is my second favorite spend. To MD's point, I disagree with everything you're saying per usual. And I'm sure you're playing Giannis, but I will not be. But that's not because I don't think Giannis is great. I think Giannis is great if you want to follow the field. And you could also possibly get Giannis with no Dame when everyone locks all the 7 p.m. stuff. And you're just like, yes, I can play Giannis team to himself if Dame gets ruled out. Great. I am not one to play Miles Bridges tonight. I think the spot is awful for Miles Bridges. I recognize that there's, team to himself Miles Bridges. But man, the Clippers defense is just quite good. So I'm not necessarily in there. And if Zion plays, of course I'd play him. He has been just an absolute maniac when he's on the floor.
Sure. Mid-tier range, anybody stand out to you that we're looking again? Smaller slates, you're not wrong. Like the player pool of desirable players kind of drops off fairly quick.
I mean, the Detroit ownership tonight is really throwing me for a loop because Asar Thompson and Tobias Harris are getting a ton of ownership. I The Toby Price is fine. He's fine to me. I would say I'm largely not playing the mid-tier and just going to value. And I think there's a few names that I would go to, Aaron Gordon being the first one. You
and a lot of people today, right?
Yeah, I mean, we literally straight up on the pre-show said, now that Aaron Gordon is starting, he's probably going to be the highest rostered player of the slate when we wake up. And then he was.
Yep.
Because why wouldn't you be playing almost a 1 fantasy point per minute guy at 4,400 in a great spot? So Aaron Gordon, 44, circling a little back to Sohan at 49. I do like the minutes. I do like the fantasy points per minute. I'm a little indifferent about what his role is currently. I mean, 18, 14 minutes upon turning them back up to 26. I'm a little scared off by the ownership, but And then Patrick Williams, 42, is someone that I'm very high on tonight. I think we're going to probably get a shift in lineup for the Bulls tonight. I don't think they're going to go 4 guards, because if they do, it's going to be a nightmare for them again. So I think Patrick Williams has been, and the ownership's come around on him a little bit. It's kind of pissed me off because I wanted to get him low owned like he was earlier in the day. But again, people are smart, and I think getting to Patrick Williams makes a lot of sense.
I took the over 6.5 rebounds and assists for Patrick Williams.
6.5 rebounds and assists.
He's cleared that in just rebounds the last 2 games.
He also would have played about 34 minutes in that game if not for a blowout.
Right.
So
I felt that line was very low.
Yeah, I mean, I think Patrick Williams, I would make a case that he starts tonight, just given what the opponent is, and the 4 guard lineup was not it. So yeah, I think Patrick Williams is like one of my favorite low owned plays of the values of the day.
I don't think you need to go to Paul Reed.
I have a different opinion. We'll go to center.
I mean, I get like the minutes he'll get, just like Stewart, but I don't know. It seems risky. Wait, we'll go to center now and talk about it. You got Jokic, Wemby up top.
Well, we'll just start with Paul Reed.
Okay, Paul Reed.
I definitely disagree. I do think he's extremely viable. On the year, when you're looking at Paul Reed, he's at 1.2 fantasy points per minute. And I think we acknowledge that Jalen Duren has been better at staying out of foul trouble lately.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that he will. And I think that there's a path for Paul Reed. There's multiple paths for Paul Reed to be a good value. One, he's 3K and he's going to operate directly as the backup center.
Sure.
Right? That is first and foremost, like, he's going to operate as the backup center. Every time that has happened, he has been really good per minute this year. So I look at it like, if you do need salary, if you are going up to Giannis, if you are going up to Jokic, you have the backup at 3K that's good per minute. It's the same. It's your argument for Paul Reed, but you talk Jalen Smith. So I don't like. It's kind of like the same.
My thoughts on
argument.
this center position specifically is just that there's a lot of good centers. So you're spending one, hoping that you'll get the high output out of Reed here. So a lot of his production has been driven by stocks, as you can see, kind of that sample size where Stewart was out of the lineup. He's giving you 5, 6 stocks, 4 stocks. So if he doesn't come through there, you're looking at some pretty bottom tier production. So you're leaning heavily on the stock production in a very short amount of time. Is basically
he had 12. I mean, he had 12 and 9 in an 18-minute span. I mean, I'm not saying that you're wrong. He is a very active
5 stocks, 3 stocks, 4 stocks.
I mean, he's a very active player. It's like the same thing as saying like Jalen Smith is going to come out there and play 14 minutes, and if he doesn't make his shots, well, then he has a bottomless floor.
Sure.
No?
Yeah, it's just harder to consistently project blocks and steals than rebounds.
I think that's a path. Like the getting on the floor is the backup, and you also have the path of, well, I have a foul happy center in front of me in a matchup against a team that goes to the rim a lot. So I think there are multiple paths. That's why I do disagree with Paul Reed. I'm not sitting here like saying I'm like playing 150 lineups and playing 100 Paul Reed, but I wrote him up in the playbook today. I think he's a very good tournament play because we know everyone's going to Musa, right? Everyone's going to play Diabate, another guy who comes off the bench and is going to operate as the backup center. But it's a very tough spot. He is a very like tall, lanky dude going up against a very large individual in Ivica Zubac. So like, it just depending on the way your lineup construction takes you, I think that there's a very strong case for Paul Reed.
Sure, and I guess you're right. It's all about lineup construction because for me, there's a lot of mid-tier centers where if you're going to double center, I'd rather just go in that direction than punting. But again, if you're playing Jokic, it makes sense to find the 3K, or playing Wemby or Giannis, it makes sense to find the 3K. Grady Dick is available. Emmanuel Quickly will start. Kelly Olynyk also available. So looks like we got a fully healthy team here for Toronto.
Nightmare scenario for all involved. Jakob Poeltl and Scotty Barnes are like the two untouched players in that scenario.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. All right. So let's go back up to the mid tier then. You started with Reed. Are you playing Jokic, playing Wemby? Like, what are your thoughts on that matchup there?
Yeah, I like Jokic a lot.
Okay.
I liked him more when he was 12% this morning, but I like Jokic a lot. And I think, there is undoubtedly a good game environment. The points are great. Coming off a really bad game, and the price is going down again for no reason. So
Quickly will be on a minutes limit, and Jamal Shed is ruled out tonight.
Sure. I'm sure Quickly will be on a limit. I'm absolutely sure of it.
Limited to 30, probably, right? Like,
yeah. Limited to not all 48.
Yep. All right, so you have the top two guys. The mid-tier Gafford, again, Anthony likes to get Gafford. I wrote up Gafford. His double-double is only minus 120 today. He's pretty much gets a double-double every time he's extended this year. So as long as there's no foul trouble or blowouts, feeling pretty confident about Gafford in this spot, like Jakob Poeltl, like Ivica Zubac, like Jalen Duren on the other side of that matchup there. So I think they're all mid-tiers just loaded with plays today.
Yeah, it is. Zubac is really nice, 7,500. Taj Gibson, Musa Diabate matchup. You can definitely get the Zubac. He'll be the lowest owned of that like tier. Gafford's going to get ownership. He's great if he stays out of foul trouble, as you mentioned. Jakob Poeltl, I don't think his minutes are really impacted all much by Kelly Olynyk. We've seen it. Like, they were not extending Olynyk very much, right? Like, it's been Jakob Poeltl's, as long as he himself stays out of foul trouble, it's Jakob Poeltl's position. So, low 30s minutes. Kelly O splits the center minutes with Poeltl, but I don't think Poeltl's affected at all. And yeah, Jalen Duren's been great. He's been so good. This is the guy that we hoped he would be. He's well over a fantasy point per minute this year. Double doubles in like every game lately. 5 of his last, or 6 of his last 7. Yeah. It's been very encouraging. And we talked about it. He has largely stayed out of foul trouble, which, again, it's hard to like ever quantify like how a player gets into so much foul trouble. It used to be Nikola Jokic when he was younger. He used to do just stupid fouls all the time. LaMelo is another right? Another player, like when he was younger, all just dumb fouls all the time. But if he can stay out of foul trouble, he's going to dominate offensive glass, defensive glass. I would do a slight hat tip to Yves Missi if Zion is ruled out. He obviously has not been good, and he has not been good with Zion, and that's clearly
0 points in back.
It's clearly Zion related, because like, what can he do? I mean, there's not a lot. They're like two guys who can't space the floor, so it's like harder for him to operate with Zion. But really consistent rebounder, gets extended every time Zion's not been on the floor. So I would give a slight hat tip there.
Sure. Anybody else for you at the center position?
No. Vooch was getting a lot of ownership earlier today. Is he still? He is getting some. I get it. I get why people would go to Vooch. It's a pretty good spot. Like Jakob Poeltl is a good shot blocker, but I'd be okay getting to Vooch. I think the price makes Vooch really appealing, down to $8,000. They really slashed all the Bulls pricing on this slate.
Yep.
And yes, Cam, I agree. Off Bruce Brown. Maybe he gets mid-20s minutes, but that's definitely not a certain
Sure.
thing.
All right, let's get a lineup build going then. Obviously, Washington cover of your playbook here today. Power forward. Are you playing Jokic tonight? Are we playing Jokic tonight?
I am personally playing Nikola Jokic, yes.
Okay, so we build with Washington.
Musa.
I kind of want to go the Gafford route though. I know we're double center, double.
We don't have to. We don't have to play Jokic. We don't have to play him.
He's expensive. Let's see if we can get a fair and balanced build here. So we do Washington, Gafford,
Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, Aaron Gordon at the forward spot. Let's see.
Vassell, small forward. It's a bad position.
So did you want to do Vassell or at shooting guard and Kawhi at small forward?
We can do that.
6K a play.
Kobe.
Who?
Kobe.
Yeah, Kobe White. 6K also. Let's see. Oubre. Just get someone on the Philly side. Or do you want to go down to like Council or something?
Yeah, I don't hate either of those approaches. I mean, if we go down to Council, obviously we'll have more money to get a spend up. I would rank them Jokic, Giannis, Wemby, Josh, and PJ Washington for me over Kawhi.
We did Council gave us the $7,800 guard, which would be like Jaylen Brown.
And then like you could stay, or your option to, if Zion's ruled out, pivot to Murphy or McCollum is also there.
Right. So fair and balanced lineup build: Kobe White, Devin Vassell, Kawhi Leonard, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, Jaylen Brown, Aaron Gordon, Ricky Council. No dollars left over. Obviously, if you want to spend up for Jokic or Wemby tonight, you can. James gave some value plays. He's got his playbook out there for all of you. I'll be on the Fantasy Alarm show at Howard Bender at 6:20. If you want to tune in there to get some more plays and some pick'em picks, you can listen to me there. Get that playbook, get in our Discord, get the 7-day free trial. Good luck on Friday, everybody. We'll be back on Monday. We'll talk to you then.